Picture this: a continent buzzing with cranes, highways stretching like new arteries, electric buses humming through crowded streets, and factories that once sat silent now glowing at night. And behind much of this transformation, a quiet architect at work: China. Today, we are stepping into one of the most important geo-economic stories of our time, because Africa is not just rising, it is being rewired, rebuilt, and reimagined. And whoever helps build that future will shape the balance of power for the next century. But this isn't a story about charity or grandeur from speeches on global stages. It's about strategy. It's about China's long game, Africa's moment of opportunity, and a West that suddenly finds itself holding yesterday's map in tomorrow's world. Before we dive deeper, if you find value in this video so far, tap like and share it. It really helps bring more thoughtful voices into discussions that shape our world. Now, let's zoom in. For decades, much of the West saw Africa as a place to take from, not build with. Raw minerals out, aid packages in, and infrastructure left to age. Washington and Brussels talked about development, but trade terms, currency systems, and supply chains kept the continent tied to outside control. But China decided to play a different game. Instead of short-term squeezes, it invested in long-term growth. Instead of speeches, it brought cranes, engineers, ports, and power lines. Instead of treating Africa as a mine, it treated the continent like a market and a partner. This approach didn't happen overnight. China plans in decades, not headlines. It looks beyond election cycles and quarterly earnings. It asks, what does Africa look like in 2050 when it will have the largest working-age population on Earth? What does global influence look like when 1.4 billion Africans are consuming, creating, building, and shaping digital, industrial, and energy systems? Suddenly, Africa is not someone's backyard, it's the playing field. And China arrived early. Think about manufacturing. For years, Africa imported second-hand vehicles, appliances, phones. Now we're seeing a different wave. Brand new EVs and hybrids, smart devices, homegrown solar grids, rural broadband, and industrial hubs. Leading the charge in mobility is BYD, Build Your Dreams. And the name is almost poetic. Because what China is doing in Africa is not just business, it's rewriting futures. BYD doesn't just make cars. It builds batteries, renewable systems, AI-driven vehicle platforms, everything from chip systems to charging infrastructure. They recently rolled out 300 fast charging stations in South Africa as part of a larger push into the continent. But here's the key. They're not just selling vehicles. They are laying the foundation for Africa's shift to hybrid and electric mobility. Their new hybrid platforms can stretch up to 2,000 kilometers on one fuel tank in one charge. That's huge in regions where fuel prices bite and infrastructure can be uneven. If you stand on a busy street in Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, Kigali, or Cairo 10 years from now, don't be surprised if half the cars you see are Chinese. And they won't just be cheaper, they'll be more advanced. That is how markets flip. Not through slogans, but through value. People can feel in their pocket and in their daily life. And cars are only one lane of this highway. China is pouring concrete, steel, fiber cables, and megawatts into the continent's veins. Roads, ports, power stations, special economic zones, hydro dams, solar fields. Africa's biggest train networks? Mostly Chinese-built. Strategic ports? Chinese companies operate major ones. 4G and 5G rollout? Huawei and its peers led huge segments of that push. Meanwhile, Western leaders keep giving lectures about democracy initiatives, stability frameworks, and partnership conferences. Nice phrases, but Africa learned something powerful. Infrastructure beats speeches. Roads move goods. Power moves industry. Factories move incomes. Now, here's where the story sharpens. The West once dismissed China as a copycat economy. Cheap labor, knockoffs, imitation chip. But Huawei didn't become a global telecom leader by copying. Xiaomi didn't shake up global electronics by imitating. And BYD isn't storming the EV world because it followed Toyota. China evolved. Fast. And by building in Africa instead of just selling to it, it positioned itself inside the next great growth engine. That scares Washington. It rattles Brussels. Because Africa isn't just buying Chinese tech, it's plugging into China's ecosystem. And that ecosystem is now strong enough to withstand sanctions and trade wars. Cut China out of U.S. markets, it turns to Africa. Europe restricts Chinese tech, the global south absorbs it. Some call this China weaponizing Africa economically. But let's be clear, this isn't about hurting Africa. It's about creating insulation from Western dominance. Africa becomes a shield and a market, not a pawn. Now, there's a big question. Does Africa risk swapping one dependency for another? Absolutely. And leaders across the continent know it. Real sovereignty means owning data, owning manufacturing, owning power grids, coding its own digital systems, and building talent pipelines so Africans aren't just workers but innovators and shareholders. Imagine this: a world where African engineers design EV systems, African factories stamp components, African universities train battery chemists, African cloud servers store African data. That's where true power lies. Not in importing shiny things, but making them. So yes, continent-wide digital industrial policy matters. Local content rules matter. Education and engineering, agritech, cybersecurity, and energy matters. Training tech-driven trades matters just as much as university degrees. If Africa only hosts Chinese systems, value leaks out every month. If it co-builds, value circulates at home. Before we move on, quick pause. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you see China as Africa's opportunity or a new type of dependency? Drop your take below and be part of this conversation. Back to the big picture. Western governments are waking up, sometimes too late. They spent decades extracting resources and exporting second-hand governance models without building the physical base for real independence. Now they watch solar grids go up, highways wind across savannas, ports become gateways for global trade, and they are surprised. But Africa is not shutting the door on the West. It's saying, bring fairness. Bring factories, not lectures. Bring investment, not conditions. Bring respect, not paternalism. The partner who treats Africa as sovereign will find a seat at the table. The one who arrives with the same old handbook will stand outside knocking. And here is the moment Africa stands in. Its population is young, ambitious, and expanding. Global demand is shifting south. Innovation is spreading. This is not aid season. This is the birth of a market giant. The real challenge now is unity. If nations negotiate alone, powerful partners dictate terms. If Africa negotiates as a bloc, it writes the terms. Unity turns resources into leverage. It turns markets into power. It turns the world's oldest continent into the world's newest center of innovation. We can already feel the ripple effects. A Kenyan farmer checking crop markets on a Chinese smartphone powered by solar. A Nigerian entrepreneur shipping goods across a Chinese-built rail line. A family in Cape Town driving a hybrid that costs less to fuel than their old diesel. A student in Ghana learning coding on a low-cost smart laptop. These aren't future stories, they're now stories. Still, Africa must guard data sovereignty like gold. It must protect local capital markets. It must negotiate battery and mineral processing at home, not abroad. Lithium shouldn't leave as dust. Cobalt shouldn't leave as rocks. Oil shouldn't only ship as barrels. That era is ending. The only question is, who shapes what comes next? Here's a gentle truth. No outside power, not China, not the West, not anyone, will hand Africa its dream. But for the first time in generations, Africa has multiple suitors and leverage to choose terms. That is power. That is timing. That is history opening a door. And Africa will win this century not by choosing sides, but by choosing standards, choosing sovereignty, choosing skill building, technology transfer, and continental unity. The world cannot rise without Africa rising, and that rise has begun. If you've made it this far, thank you. Your curiosity is fuel for deeper conversations like this. If you learned something, enjoyed the flow, or simply want more thoughtful global analysis, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It helps this channel grow and helps you stay connected to content that treats you like a thinker, not a click. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep your eyes on the world as it changes right in front of us.